Hey everyone, this is on my mind right now with the state of the world and the state of the US economy and just questions about what anybody is going to do with their future in the face of AI, in the face of the economy in general. And so I just want to talk to, this could really go for anybody, but I'm going to first talk to like teenagers who are, in high school thinking about going to college or just thinking about what they're going to do when they graduate high school. And the other thing is the average family is gonna need their child who turns 18 to work eventually. So this is kind of speaking to those teenagers who know that they cannot just hang at home. And so they're like, I should go to college. This advice is coming from someone who has a bachelor's in engineering, who has a master's in health informatics, who has 5 years of professional steady work experience. I'd say 5.5. I'm in my late 20s, so I still have a long ways to go, but I have, that experience already to see things that even I think I could have done. So I would say firstly that I see a lot of people say that college is a waste or they're questioning the value of a degree. And I would say I don't think that college itself is a waste. I think that going to school for something and you're financially strapped, you're taking on debt and you're not sure about what you're doing, you don't feel good about it. You also have not really tested the market for that degree. I think that's a waste. I'll be honest with you. Even if you're learning certain social skills, the only thing that would make it not be a waste is if you are genuinely networking with people who can get you a job after the fact. And even then, I wouldn't gamble with that in this economy because college will be there, but your time will not. So this is my advice. This is coming from someone who, not only my background of education, but I'm also talking about people that I know who are doctors now, who are nurses, who are engineers, who work in, general office administration. So, and even trades. I would say, see if there's a way, even if, especially when you're younger and you don't have children, you can stay on your parents' health insurance until you're 26 years old. If you have, a family that will let you at least stay with them until you're ready, to move out. I would say, I don't want to say gamble, because gambling with your time, like I said, we don't have time to really waste. But I would say, for example, if you want to be a nurse, try to get into the industry that you want to go to school for, even if it's just the lower level. So when you're a teenager, if you're trying to, most teenagers are working, minimum wage jobs, or they're working, lower end jobs like, retail or fast food, or, maybe an admin person making the lower amount of money, or customer service. I would say try to find an entry point into that industry and test it first. Because what happens when you go to college and you graduate is, number one, people struggle to find jobs. So you want to kind of see how competitive is it. I'm not trying to be rude, but what's the point of having a college degree if you graduate from that program and they want you to have 5 years of experience out the gate and you don't have any connections? This isn't for people who, if like, oh, my dad has a job waiting for me, my dad's friend, or I know someone who's going to get me in the door. I'm not talking to you. Go to college, get your education, and then get to the other side. This is for people like myself who went to college for an opportunity to better themselves and then had to literally climb their way to anything. I would say if you want to be, for example, like a nurse, your entry point could be a medical assistant. And medical assistants don't really get paid a lot of money, but you are doing a lot of work in, the medical field, especially depending on what departments. Like, let's say you wanted to be a nurse in the, I don't know, OBGYN or something like that. See if you could become a medical assistant in that area, because if you can do that, that's a easier entry point. You only need a high school diploma. You go for like 4 months training, and then you get into the job. And you're not a nurse. Nursing is a more advanced education and licensure. but you're in an environment where you're working with nurses, you're gonna feel that culture. I've worked in a hospital. My undergrad is in biomedical engineering, so I've worked in hospital in multiple capacities as research intern, as like an actual coordinator, oncology surgery department. So I've seen different under the hood experiences that if I had saw that when I was a teenager, I would have been like, wow, I just wouldn't have known. So I think if you want to be a nurse, nursing will be there. The colleges will be happy to take you and your money when you're ready. But even if you're just a medical assistant from 18 to 20, just working, saving your money if you can, and getting exposed to that environment so that you really know that you want to be a nurse. And the other thing with that is it can boost your application because, if you know you want to do it, you save your money, and and if it's full-time, you could get off your parents' health insurance, because I know some people don't have the luxury of staying on their parents' health insurance until 26 and living with their parents. So that gives you a full-time job. And it also could boost your nursing application because you have that experience already, with direct patient care. I would say if you want to get into accounting, there are a lot of accounting jobs out there, entry level. Again, you're not going to be like out the gate making six figures, but maybe start as like a payroll clerk, or, like general accounting, like accounts receivable, where it's more like customer service and kind of just making sure that charges match with certain account numbers. And you would just want to make sure you're good with like Excel. But in this current generation, I strongly believe that they'll have no issue working with Excel. But if you think already like, oh, I want to go to school for business administration with a concentration in accounting, or BS in accounting, or whatever, I would say see about working that job first, even if it's for 2 years. And the other thing is, if you work for like a finance company and you say like, I want to go get my bachelor's in accounting, they may help you pay for your education. And that you may be able to enroll in a program that could work with your work schedule. I think it would be easier though to be in that environment, because the other thing is, when you are going from high school, this is my experience, when you go straight from like 12, I've been in school since I was a baby. So you go from your whole life being in school, the structure of school, homework, everything's kind of laid out for you. And then you graduate and you get a full-time job. You also, especially if it's corporate, you really get that like shock of, you have to be professional and stuff like that. But you're like, oh my goodness, I'm at work all day. I have all these demands on me. And then I get home, let's say you work 9 to 5, or you get off at 5, whatever, or even getting off at 4 or 4:30, you have to get home. Or even if you're already home, I gotta cook, I gotta clean, I might just want to lay down and text friends or watch a show, but then you realize, well, I have to get in the bed and get sleep. I have to take a shower. I have to prepare for tomorrow. I have to, so you really lose a lot of time. And so I think if you leave high school and you go and work first, and not only use that to stack some money for college, maybe you get into a company that has education benefit built in, you also already get a taste of what your adult life would be like. So maybe depending on the discipline that you want, if you go if it's like more corporate, you might think like, I don't like that. I don't like sitting at a desk all day. I realize that messes with me. So maybe I don't want a job that's going to keep me stuck to a desk. And you might still could, do certain types of jobs with a certain degree that you were going for, but having that sample, I call it the sampler, can help you make more informed decisions. Same thing with the trades. People always say go to trade school. Look up trade jobs, or any job that you want in advance. Your golden ticket job, if you could have your whatever job you think you would apply for when you get your bachelor's degree, try to look at that job right now to see what the demands are, because I'm not trying to steer you away from anything that you want to do. But if you know that every job you want right out of college says 3 years of experience minimum, and you have 0, and when you go to college you're still gonna have 0, I personally am not trying to be rude, but don't waste your time. See if there's a way, if you really want to get into that industry. There are now, depending on where you live, certain programs that will take you with no degree, but the requirement is that you don't have a degree. So even in my experience, I went for biomedical engineering in undergrad. I had 2 great internship experiences, and I remember reading job descriptions where they had in capital letters right out of college, internships do not count as experience. So you're basically telling me that I have 0 years of experience despite the fact that I practiced fundamental biomedical engineering principles on internship, in neuro-oncology, in biology labs, in anatomy labs, but you're not counting that. So look in advance for the things that you would want if you graduated from college. And number 1, see if there's a way you can get into that industry without the degree first. And 2, if it's something that has like a really high like breaking point, I would see what would be the way for me to get in there without a degree, or do I need to tweak the degree? Like, for example, with biomedical engineering, in my experience, the reason it's so hard to break into is because they tend to want someone who has a very specific experience. So with biomedical engineering, it can be very broad. You can get into computational engineering, where you're doing a lot of like computer programming and engineering, depending on, you know, what side of it you're on. You can get into a lot of electrical engineering if you're dealing with like medical devices, electromech if you're dealing with medical devices like prosthetics, the mechanical aspect, biomechanics, maybe even tissue engineering, electrical engineering, depending on how advanced the prostheses is. Just things like that where, you know, or even research where, you know, they might want you to have very in-depth biological wet lab experience coupled with maybe tissue engineering if you're trying, depending on the research you're doing. So my experience educationally was we got a taste of everything. So we were like jack of all trades, master of none. If I could go back, I would have went for electromechanical engineering. It would have been an extra year, but it would have been worth it because that's the sector of biomedical engineering that I most enjoyed. I really enjoyed laboratory experience, but electromech would have made me have that very rich fundamental experience and then minor in biology, because then I'll have the really strong, rich electromechanical principle necessary to understand how to wire something, or, you know, the mechanics of like a prosthesis, or the mechanical elements of devices and things. But then the biology minor would have helped me have that biological and, you know, maybe get into anatomy as well, education necessary to at least understand how the body works. You can always take those little supplemental biology and anatomy courses on the side if you really want to enrich your understanding, if you wanted to go into biomedical, and you could put that on your resume. But then also, if the biomedical industry got too difficult, I could have then worked for my public transit system. I could have worked for our electrical company. So I feel like with biomedical engineering, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I didn't understand just how, what I needed to pivot. So if I could go back to like 11 years ago when I was picking my major, maybe even, 11 years ago now, I would have looked up exactly what those jobs required instead of listening to colleges say this is a very growing industry and all the things that they say to sell you things, because it was a growing industry and it's a very lucrative industry. But I should have looked at jobs then just to see how competitive it was and what those employers wanted. And so that's why when I'm thinking about teenagers who are just trying to go to college, I feel like people are understanding that now college is not the direct pathway to success. But at the same time, I still hear people saying like, I don't have a degree, so I need to go to college. And it's like, just be careful with that. You don't want to take 4 years of your time, money, stress. You have your hopes up, and then you realize that you're not able to go on. So in summary, my two biggest pieces of advice are try to find a way. If you want to do something, number one, I guess you could look up what the requirements are to get into your job. Think about, if I take this degree, what job do I want fresh out of college, and look up those jobs now, hiring, how hard is it? I'm not trying to diminish anyone's dreams, but if you don't have a direct contact or connect, how hard is it to get into that? So look up what the requirements are. If even with a degree it says you need 3 years experience, you might need to try to then do the second plan that I'm coming at, which is there any lower level entry point to get in there without the degree, so that you don't, I don't want to say waste your time, but find a way to get in there so that you can experience it, gain experience from exposure, and also make sure, like, before I even go to school and take that time, that I really like it. Because even with nursing, I used to think, they make great money, we need nurses, I value nurses. But then there are a lot of people that I know who are nurses, even travel nurses, who make so much money, doing what they do. And they say, like, I hate it. I get bullied, I get mistreated by patients sometimes, some people are getting laid off, favoritism and politics. And they're like, if I knew that these environments were like that, I would have done something else. So I feel like with being like a medical assistant, for example, you can get that exposure without really going all in with like a 4-year education, or, being an LPN, or, like, just, you get a sample, because then you might walk into that and say, you know what, I see how the nurses act, I see what the nurses go through, I don't like this environment. Or if you say, yeah, like, I can't wait to be a nurse, perfect, go to school, do your thing. So really quick, I don't want the video to be too long, but on the flip side, as I'm exiting my 20s, I'm in my late 20s now, a lot of us people who, some of us went to school for things and it's hard to break into the industry. Like I said, I have experience in my industry, but it was always like intern or temp, not full. So, people are kind of trying to figure out, well, what do I do now? And I ended up in a career that I'm thankful for, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. It was something that was paying the bills. And so I had to revamp my life. And so I would say, even if you're in a situation where you have no idea what to do next, I would say don't be afraid to, go to retail or take a certification class. Even if it's something like phlebotomy or, like maybe a quick trade, something that you could pick up quickly, just to pay your bills for now, and then see if there's a way that you can step back and maybe talk to a career coach. Or, we have AI, so people have used ChatGPT to figure out different things, and just really evaluate what you want to do next. But I think, because I know, like, with my age, I'm hearing a lot of people say, I'm not even getting a job in my industry, or I realize what I went for is not anything I wanted to do, or it's not paying enough. Don't be afraid. I don't want to say to start over, but I would say, like, don't be afraid to take a job that you can put down when you clock out, and use the time when you clock out to evaluate who you are. And if it does require education, like if you have certain levels of experience behind you and you could do that job, but they're literally saying you have to have a degree or a certification to move forward, don't be afraid to go back to school. I cannot stand people who are like 30 years old who are like, I don't want to go back to school because I'm scared. I get it. You're going to be older than the typical target demographic, but we are still very young. And in the state of this world, the retirement age may go to, 67, 70. We may, like, Social Security is in jeopardy right now in the United States. So I would say do not be afraid to go back to school if you know for a fact that that degree is the thing stopping you. If it's something that you want to do and you have already transferable skills, take a look at that. Maybe a career, again, this is where maybe a career counselor would help you, because if you've already been doing, basic administrative assistant work and, you want to go ahead and, it's just certain things where take a look at what your skills are and they may be able to transfer. But I would say the biggest thing I'm hearing with my age group is I have the experience now and all it is a degree. So it's like with the teenagers, it's I have no experience, so I'm trying to go to college so it'll catapult me into the industry, but I don't have experience, so I still get like blackballed. With my experience, it's like we had the degree, or maybe we didn't, or whatever. We've been working for a few years now, and we realize we don't like what we're doing, but we don't have that credential, and we don't want to go back because we feel too old, or we have families. But if you have families, I get it, that could be stretching it, but in a lot of cases, it's people saying they just don't feel right about being an adult in college again, like being a grown adult. And it's like, I think it's way okay to take calculated risks. You know, even at 40, if you know you want to do something and you know that education is the only barrier to getting you where you want to go, a bachelor's is 4 years, a master's is 2, you know, if you're doing it diligently and on time. You 40, 45, you still have at least 20 years of work experience. That's 2 decades. Do it. Don't let yourself count yourself out, because then you'll look back 10 years from now and be like, man, if I had did it then, I would already have the credential. I could already been here, there. You don't want to live your life with regret. Take those calculated risks. So, that's all I had to say. I think that regardless of where you are in life, especially with the things going on in the world right now, just stay positive. You know, literally, so long as you're breathing, you don't have a choice but to do okay. Like you literally have no choice but to try to climb your way out. And my biggest thing is just be strategic. Be strategic. I also want to add that whatever job you do, make sure you do it with pride. So I know that I've heard stories of people saying you only make this much money, don't go above and beyond. I believe in that, and I think that we should never overextend ourselves. But I've also had experiences where I remember, for example, I was bagging groceries at Whole Foods, and this is like just when I had graduated undergrad. So I was still looking for a job in biomedical engineering. And I remember it was a man with his wife and his young daughter. Like she was like maybe like 1.5. And I remember, I don't even know how we got on the topic. But I know I had bagged his groceries and put it in the carriage, and I was very precise. And I remember I don't know, the way I did it, it was just with such care. You know, I gave him direct eye contact. I was very articulate. And I remember him saying to me, you know, like engaging with me, and I told him, you know, I'm here because I just freshly graduated college. I'm still looking for work in my field. And he was like, I'm a research person at one of the hospitals in the area. And I just remember that was an opportunity for me to step foot in that sector. You know, they weren't looking for anybody, but it was like a little taste of the industry. And then I remember there was another time, this is how I got my 5.5 years of experience in the professional sector that I was in. It wasn't for me, but I was in it. I was a temp, just trying to make money while going for my master's degree, because at the time when I was interviewing for the biomed, everyone was kind of turning me away because of lack of masters. They said, you interview well, but you don't have a master's. So I was trying to go for the master's. And I remember a person who was permanent was leaving after 7 years. So I said, let me step up to the position. And they hired me. But I remember them telling me when I was a temp, they said, you know, you come in earlier than our actual permanent staff. You know, the quality of your work, you're one of the best temps we ever had. I remember my former colleague said to me that they had a temp one time. They asked him to do something, and he said, that's not my job. And it technically was, but he just didn't want to, you know, overextend himself. So I got picked for that position, and that was nothing to do with my industry. It was just, I was a temp. I got picked for that full-time position because of the attitude that I had as a temp. So I know people who temp and they have this kind of way where I'm just here to make money, and, you know, I don't get paid any extra to do extra. Always use your common sense, right? Like if somebody's having you do something that is beyond the scope of what you're getting paid for, you know it's not right, you know, use your best judgment to scale back. But but when it comes to coming to work with pride, even if you're bagging groceries, you know, giving the proper eye contact, remaining professional, don't involve yourself in coworker, you know, politics. Unfortunately, I've even seen young people give up on themselves. So I would just say that, you know, give anything that you do your best. There's a difference between overdoing it for a company that's not doing anything for you and giving something your best, because you have no idea what's going to be in store for you or who you run into in these capacities, and it may have nothing to do with bagging groceries had nothing to do with biomedical engineering, but you don't know who you're bagging groceries for. Being a temp and working at a company where everyone was there for at least 5 to 10 years, you think nobody's ever gonna leave, and then a position becomes open after a month of me temping, and now this had the opportunity to change my life, so in a good way. So that's the other piece that I can give. I was just thinking about that. That's advice to give to teenagers and adults, anybody, no matter what stage in the game you're in. If you're a quality person, you have no idea the impression you could give on the right person so that they can help you. So hopefully this advice is helpful. If there's anything else that I think of, I'll upload it in a separate video, kind of like a part 2. But I just wanted to motivate other people. Keep your head up. Times are tough right now. They may get a little bit tougher, but if you play this smart, be strategic, and try to go the path that gives you the most insurance, with lower risk, but getting you where you want to go, try that. But also don't be afraid to take that risk with yourself. So I'll talk to you all later. Peace.